Let's get illuminated. Today is June 3rd, 2020. My name is Amy, and I had a big meal for lunch, so I'm feeling a bit sluggish, so I kind of forget what we're going to talk about today. We are going to talk about Saturn and Satan and Venus and Ishtar and Lucifer and the Matrix and black cubes and black mirrors and shadow work and chilling the fuck out. I'm going to start by pulling some amount of cards. I like to really try to make things up as I go along, be random and surprised, because I find that when my intellect knows something, in many ways I get worse at it. But if I stay like a fool, like a child, and just kind of like surprise myself constantly, that's when I feel like I'm in the flow. My hands are barely too small for this deck. Oh. We are doing the Dreams of Gaia Tarot, which is like the most beautiful deck I've ever seen in my life. And I feel like we need some beauty to help counterbalance all the shit going on right now. So help me discern the direction that we are going today in what we're talking about. I guess we can just look in terms of linear time. Phase 1, Phase 2, Phase 3 of this video. So, I like to shuffle cards till they sort of pop out. But not always. Sometimes I get a hit to split a deck. Sometimes I get a hit to fan them out. Always keeping it fresh. Every second is brand new. Brand new. So the reason, the impetus for this video, I feel like there's always kind of like a setting off point. The impetus for this video was the Blackout Tuesday that happened yesterday. I'm so bored with like explaining background of things. I kind of just want you to Google it. But basically, a bunch of people put black squares on Instagram yesterday. It ended up being like crazy controversial. There's so many layers. Like music producers started it with the well-intended cause with a completely different hashtag called something like pause the music. Then people were just, next thing you know, people are posting black boxes of, just black boxes on their page, and they're hashtagging like Blackout Tuesday or Black Lives Matter. And then other people are mad because you're pushing down, basically, so yesterday was a very interesting day. I don't know, I've been on Instagram every day. Yesterday was a particularly interesting day to me because it felt like this sort of, like we had this cloud of everything going on, and yesterday was the first day that it felt like the collective consciousness was sort of gelling. And I'm not going to say it was like easy or going well. I mean, everybody's still mad at each other and yelling at each other, but nevertheless, it was very interesting to see a kind of coordinated effort across social media to communicate between all the protesters among all the different cities. Like, whether you agree with it or not, set your biases aside and just look at the profoundness of what it is that these people are communicating live and sharing tips and data back and forth. And so it really felt like everybody was sort of unified in a way that I just feel like I haven't ever energetically seen. Stuff's changing. So all that happened, and then a friend of mine posted something very interesting, and she said, this black box is reminiscent of these black cubes. Google, like, black cube Saturn agenda. And I have to admit, I didn't go, like, terribly deep into it, because I've already gone down the rabbit hole of, like, ascension glossaries and how to exit the matrix and blue pill, red pill, Kabbalah, Gnosticism, Sufism, blah, blah, blah. Well, this one just flipped out. That's funny. Gorgeous cards. The Hero. So this isn't like the traditional Rider-Waite deck, and I have to admit I'm not like crazy good at tarot, so I will definitely be consulting the book, but just wow. There's like all kinds of third eye chakra stuff going on. I wonder what gemstones the artist was thinking of when they drew the earrings, but to me this guy looks just like a gel sugilite, which we can Google that for fun for this video. And then there's peacock feathers, and then an eye and a sun above it, and there's all this like sword energy and bear. It's interesting, and there's a crack on the face. This is such a good symbolic deck. So there's, I don't know if the camera's picking it up. You can see it a little. There's a little crack going right along the face, but you almost don't see it at first because it's like this golden I think I know what I need to talk about just by looking at this card. I think I'm just going to take the top three. Oh, that's interesting. It's like a little story. Okay. So, we got the Hero. Then we have Desire, which this card fascinates me as well. The very first thing that I see when looking at this card is like the golden mean spiral, the Fibonacci sequence spiral. There's a lot of sacred geometry going on. Obviously, it's interesting that there's a young boy, a dragon, a ram, an eagle, and an eye. And also, it's interesting to me when I kind of see this here, this eye plus this little whoop. Right here, I see kind of Eye of Horus energy. But, what sticks out to me is this idea of desire. And then this one I'm going to have to look up. This looks like it's the one of fire. But then you've got the golden dragon again. And you've got a spider and an egg. And it's really funny. I was actually just taking a video of a jumping spider, which I can, like splice in. I don't know if anybody of you ever watched Bob Ross's videos, but one thing that was always fun about watching Bob Ross is he would cut away from his paintings to like show his baby squirrels that he was raising, which is really cool. And then I'm going to go ahead and pull just one card from my Threads of Fate deck. Just because I'm feeling like I just haven't gotten the whole message. And this one tends to be, oh man, saying my device is too hot. Let's move you to the shade, little buddy. All right. Hopefully that's a little better. It is like 95 degrees out here, so I might be cutting this video. We'll see. We will see. All right. Oh, what was I saying? I don't know. I don't have the full aha yet, so just keep going until I get the aha. All right. So this is an oracle deck. I find oracle decks to be like great for beginners. They're just very simple, straightforward. Obviously you can interpret, but there's usually a very, very, very clear, plain meaning that comes right out. So, hopefully, that's what we get here. Alright. There's been all kinds of bird energy going on. I saw a crow chasing a hawk away, and then it turned around, and then like 3 little mockingbirds were chasing it away. It was kind of funny. Oh, this one flipped out. Fate. Do I take all 3? Sure. the pillar, the wildling. All right. I can't say my monkey mind brain is any more aware, but let's just go. All right, so we've got fate. We've got the pillar. And we've got the wildling. Wildling. So before I even go and look into like meanings of cards, I like to just get the hit. So fate is very interesting to me. It's an egg. And there's a short story called The Egg. That's the very first thing that I'm getting. I'll link it under this video. But the idea is essentially... Actually, I don't know if I want to say. It touches upon the whole reason why we're here and why we're growing. And it's about the fact that we haven't hatched yet. And so for me, too, these next two cards, the pillar and the wildling next to each other, I see this sort of... So I'm going to be talking about duality today. So I see this very dualistic energy coming up. And it's interesting, too, because one is pillars, which I see as, it's support and cooperation. And so I'm sure there's a whole other layer with the wildling, but I see conflict and the clashing of duality here. So, just going to let these energies absorb while I talk. So as I was saying, what was I saying? Oh, the Saturn black cube thing. Okay, so, for me in my own personal journey, I went way down the rabbit hole of everything to do with like New Age stuff and esotericism, and I got really, really, really like lost in the weeds. And so I'm here to help people for who this particular message resonates. If you have mastered whatever knowledge base you have mastered, if you are just certain that you know what starseed you are and you understand what starseeds are and you understand this whole matrix agenda, like, that's great. I'm not there currently. I'm kind of down here with the people. So that is what I want to talk about today. Part of me just doesn't want to do this. I feel a block. Like, I feel sleepy from the food. And the truth is that what I'm about to talk about, I just know is like super triggering to people. Or that's what I'm creating at the moment anyway. So I want to try to transcend that and transmute it. I'm going to back away from all the esoteric stuff with the tarot for just a moment and speak in just very clear kind of human terms. People are just freaking the hell out, and people just need to chill out. And I understand that for some people this is an absolutely outrageous thing to say, especially someone who looks like me. I get it. I see you. I'm still being called from something higher, something very high, to speak anyway. So my disclaimer is this: I am a human. I'm a work in progress. I don't have all the information. In fact, I'm here specifically because I do not feel like I have all the information. And I want to share my piece of the puzzle and ask that other people share theirs. Talk to me. And let's just figure out what the heck's going on. Let's essentially get this stuff solved as much as we can. Because aren't we done with this phase of humanity, and aren't we ready to just like move on? It's obvious. I was reading this post about the Saturn, Satan, black cube mirror thing, and they'll point to the fact that the thing in Mecca is like a big black cube that they walk around, and oh, it's, you know, evidence of satanic worship. I don't even want to get into the weeds with any of those arguments. I think what seeing this post did was just pop me back out to this point where I'm just going like, whoa. Like, let's just slow down here for a second. So my spiritual background, the thing that resonated with me finally was Hermetic Alchemy. And I'm going to be the first to admit I'm still very much a newcomer to this stuff. I consider myself a, you know, lifetime student. And I'm really here again to say, like, let's figure this out. What is going on? How do we actually fix stuff once and for all? So Hermeticism, that's so hard to even explain quickly. It's an esoteric tradition that's very old that transcends all religion. It's a spirituality. It is otherwise pretty much dogma free. Their leader, if you even want to call him that, is a legendary figure called Hermes Trismegistus. And he comes from the Greek god Hermes and Mercury. And so he's this god that can go to the basically heaven and hell. He's the only god that can go to heaven and hell. So he's the god of communication. But look it up. I can't possibly condense it down into this video, and we've got a lot to talk about. The bottom line is, what I want to share with you is Hermetic Alchemy has 7 basic principles, and I'm just going to read them to you. Number 1, mentalism. The all is mind. The universe is mental. Correspondence. As above, so below. As below, so above. Number 3, vibration. Nothing rests. Everything moves. Everything vibrates. Number 4, polarity. Everything is dual. Everything has poles. Everything has its pair of opposites. Number 5, rhythm. Everything flows out and in. Everything has its tides. All things rise and fall. Number 6, cause and effect. Every cause has its effect. Every effect has its cause. Everything happens according to law. Number 7, gender. Gender is in everything. Everything has its masculine and feminine principles. Gender manifests on all planes. So the main points that I want to talk about today are, I guess, mentalism as the background, but more specifically correspondence and polarity. There's a little grasshopper. So the first axiom, mentalism, the all is mind, the universe is mental. What that means to me is that, put another way, this entire universe is the dream of the Godhead. So God is responsible for everything that's happening. God's source consciousness, the thing that caused the Big Bang, whatever you want to call it. The thing is we all believe in some kind of initiator. So the initiator is mental. This is why books like The Secret exist. This is why discussions of the law of attraction exist. You actually create something in your mind on the mental plane. You can call it, honestly, it really is interchangeably used. People will argue with me, but some people call it the etheric plane, some people call it the astral plane. It is the invisible plane, the plane where consciousness exists. So we create things in our minds before they manifest on the existing plane. I mean, think about creating a building. It's very simple. You know, someone has a thought. First thing that happens is a thought. I want to build a building. Okay, what's it look like? All right, let's draw up blueprints. Okay, now we'll build the building. It sounds very woo-woo, but when you walk it through, it's not. correspondence, as above, so below, as below, so above. So that's like a very simple way of putting it, but I see it, it's hard to put into words. It's not even just as above, so below, as below, so above. It's like as within, it is so without. And so another way to think about this is that the universe is like a giant fractal. And so fractals look like extraordinarily complex, and there's stuff all over the place. Just Google fractal. But if you move to any part of the fractal, or you like zoom in as far as you can, or zoom out as far as you can, you actually see that the shape there's a repeating pattern everywhere. And so to me, correspondence is just sort of like the pattern repeats everywhere. And then the last thing I want to talk about is polarity. Everything is dual, everything has poles, everything has its pair of opposites. So that's very true on this particular reality. That is probably not true on other dimensions, but it is certainly the defining characteristic of this dimension. Which one flung away? It was the wildling that got away. That's kind of funny. All right. So, I guess the first thing that I want to talk about is the first thing I want to talk about is God and Satan. And I feel like that's why this card came up first. Because to me, and to many other people in many different traditions, God is not the Christian God. God is not a dude in the sky, like making people chop up babies to determine who the right mom is. That's just some small time stuff. God is the thing that encompasses everything. So if we're sitting here, and actually Hinduism provides a useful framework for this, because in Hinduism they talk about there being this Godhead. I believe it is the Brahman. So I don't think the Brahman manifests on this plane. The Brahman is think of something that contains all of the noises and all of the sounds and all of the colors. And I think actually, I'm remembering this from that movie from the 90s, Dogma, with Matt Damon and the guy, I forget he's dead, but the guy who played like Severus Snape in the Harry Potter movies, he plays the voice of God. And I'm pretty sure this is based on like a real character in the Bible. I'm obviously not a Christian. I haven't read that much of the Bible. But there is some kind of angel that speaks on behalf of God, because if God were to speak to us, we would literally be torn apart. And so that is actually what I think of as God. And God is awesome in every sense of the word. It's glorious and terrifying because it's all the noise and all the light and all the things. It's just gonna, to us, it's just gonna be like, just very punchy. And so by the time, in my assessment, we're getting to the Bible and there's a God with a choir of angels, and one of them goes, and I just found this out today. I actually literally was finally like, or last night maybe, I literally was finally like, I actually don't know why Lucifer got kicked out of heaven. And so I Googled it, and I have to admit I was very shocked that it was like, he thought he was very pretty, and he wanted to just like sit on a higher throne and be worshipped. And this God was like, get out of here. And so he went, I'm taking a third of the angels with me, screw you. And he went and created hell, ostensibly. So I feel like a very Socratic sort of character. Very Socratic, very court jester sort of character. And I feel like I'm kind of standing outside like the whole thing of like, just, what is God? What is Satan? There's people that worship God. There's people that worship Satan. And I'm sitting here going like, hold on, like let's just look at this whole thing. I tend to do that about a lot of things. Like, so for example, I'm not a big fan of like the global warming discussion at all. Like, we're forced into a smaller discussion over and over again with all of these hot button issues than I think the issue really is. So for example, it's like, okay, fine, we don't understand what global warming is, but can we all agree that we don't like pollution? Can we have that discussion? So to me, you can't really be the highest. What I was saying before is in Hinduism, there's the Brahmin who doesn't manifest on this plane, and the highest avatar is Krishna. And so they still say Krishna isn't quite God, but he's kind of like he's like the closest, he's the most complete, he's the purest. But they admit, like, essentially the second anything's manifesting on Earth, it can't possibly be God. And so I just find that deeply resonant. And so who was God walking around the Garden of Eden? Who was that guy if he's not the whole thing? Because the whole God is the whole thing around the whole thing. So who's that guy? And who is Lucifer really? Is he getting a bad rap? And so, a lot of people get horrified with this. Oh, are you going to worship Satan? No. If to me, if you're like worshiping just look at Satanists. They're obviously like not integrated people, but at the same time, like, most Christians aren't very integrated people. Yeah, today's going to be a discussion about integration. I think Satan got a bad rap. And I'm not saying that I know anything beyond that. I'm saying we need to take a look back and figure out what Satan is. And so this ties to me to the principle of correspondence, which is as above, so below, as below, so above, as within, so without. So my point is, if we're freaked out about anything on this plane, based on the principles of alchemy, it means that there's something within ourselves that we have not worked on. So what is your Satan within you? What are you afraid of? What are you not looking at in yourself? So it was really funny to me that the next thing for everybody to be concerned about is this idea about, oh, we've turned our phones into black mirrors. Oh, they're black cubes. It's the Satan Luciferian agenda. And then it, you actually just start going, okay, fine, and you research on the internet, and it's like, okay, so we have maybe negative entities and negative, what's the word I'm looking for? Frequencies coming out of Saturn, which is a satanic satanic planet. Oh, but the moon is like, some people think that the moon is like hollowed out, like the backside of the moon is like this satellite base for like aliens and stuff like that. I guess my point is, like, figure out your story. God, I just don't feel called to do this anymore right now. It's very strange. It's just dissolving. I'll push through for a little more while and just see what happens. But my God, every time I start talking about this stuff, I just want to, like, say screw this and just, like, go take a hike in the forest, literally. I have this certain amount of fatigue over everybody just being freaked out about everything. And I'm tired of being freaked out myself. And a while ago, I decided to just let go of guilt and shame and start being happy for no good reason. I was in the middle of being like, I was in the throes of being back and totally smoking pot all the time when I made this decision, eating junk food. And so I was at the bottom of that, and I was like, I'm just going to let go of the guilt and shame now and see what happens. And then everything started to get better. And I want that for other people. So I was going to do this whole academic thing, but the bottom line is, what I want to get at is, just look up the story of Satan. It starts to get confusing as hell. It starts to get confusing as hell. Is that Satan Saturn? Is he Baal? Is he Beelzebub? So the crux of this confusion for me is, okay, Satan is called Lucifer. Lucifer means the light bringer, and it's tied to the morning star. But the morning star is Venus. And Venus is another name for Ishtar. And Ishtar is the goddess by which we get the name Easter. And I don't know a whole lot about this part, but there's an awful lot of people out there on the internet and conspiracy theories that are freaked out about Ishtar worship. And this is like, I think it ties like very quickly into QAnon and this whole thing about, you know, Hillary Clinton is something reptilian agenda, Jeffrey Epstein, pedophiles, shuttling them off planet and eating their hemochrome. And, you know, there's certain entities that, you know, have split from source consciousness. Somehow they were able to do that. And they have to drink baby blood to stay alive forever. I don't know what happens to them after they die. How do they just exit this dimension? Nobody has an explanation for that I've seen. So I think what I'm getting at is people just need to like read history because, oh, actually, no, it's on the phone here. I don't know how I'm going to be able to do this. We used to just worship what was literally around us. We used to worship tree spirits and the stars and water and fire. And then I think Judaism makes its claim that it's sort of the first religion that had this idea of an invisible God. And so what I really think is happening is like each new religion that comes through just does a propaganda sick burn on the religion before that. But there's this thing in the Bible where it talks about you know, the idea that Lucifer wanted to rise above, and Lucifer is beautiful, and that's like arrogance and stuff like that. So as punishment, Lucifer is sent down to the underground. And so the planet Venus is this morning star. The planet Venus literally actually creates this beautiful flower symbol in the sky with her orbit. But one thing that she does is every summer, and it's actually happening right now. She went down maybe a week ago. So she will rise in the morning. And then she eventually, because of her pattern, she goes below the horizon. And she goes below the horizon for 40 days. 40 days is a very notable number in many, many religious traditions. The most standout one for people here in America is the 40-day flood, where we didn't know where God was for 40 days. So what the hell is the devil? What the hell is Satan? Is it Saturn? Is it Beelzebub, which is a fly god, which was actually worshipped for a while? Flies were considered holy because they turn waste into hummus and help start the life cycle over. You know, is Satan the Venus star? Did the Jews just change the religion on the previous planet-worshipping civilizations like the Sumerians and the Mesopotamians, and then just do a sick burn on them and say, like, everything that you worship is satanic? I think I'm going to stop talking about this for right now, because my point in all of this is, what the hell is going on? I'm confused, and I don't know a lot. If anybody can talk to me about Ishtar, Satan, Lucifer, Saturn, from a historical perspective, if anyone knows anything about the evolution of these stories, that's what I want to hear about, because there's something funky going on. So we'll just focus on Satan being, you know, the devil, and we'll go from there. So I think the problem that we have is we're looking at this polaric existence, which was principle number 4 in alchemy. Everything has poles: light and dark, hot and cold, tall and short, skinny and fat. You can't have one without it being in comparison to the other on this dimension. So, to me, when you have the God walking around the Garden of Eden, and you got Satan doing his thing, when you have these manifested beings that seem to take some sort of shape and seem to have words and like go about and aren't everything all the time, neither of them is the Godhead. And my suspicion is that the name of this game isn't, do you take the blue pill or the red pill? Do you take the right hand path of the tree of life or the left hand path? The trick is to go, hold on, this is a false choice. Despite the fact that this dimension is polaric, for me to ascend, I have to understand that the polarity is an illusion. And I get to accept and integrate everything. And a lot of people talk about shadow work and doing all this integration. Yet, there's still the same motherfucking people talking about entities and attachments and reptilians and implants and blah, 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 fucking blah. It doesn't make any sense to me. To me, the trick is to understand that Satan is here for a reason and God is here for a reason. I'm going to start calling God the demiurge. This is what the Gnostics call him. I think in Gnosticism, he's born of Sophia, the goddess of wisdom. And he's kind of running around. And you can kind of tell in the Old Testament, it's just sort of like, who is this guy? Like, why is he so pissy? Why is he so needy? Why does he need to be worshipped? I cannot, for the life of me, picture the almighty God being like, I need to be worshipped. And you can't be worshipped more than me because you think you're pretty. Like, that God just does not have time for this shit. Wow, that's a funny joke. That God actually has all the time in the world for all this shit and is, agnostic about the whole thing. That God is a hermaphrodite, and I mean that from Hermes and Aphrodite, not the old derogatory term for trans people. It's the whole kit and caboodle. And so to me, that God is almost like a child that's going like, wow, this is neat. Wow, this is neat. Pizza's neat. Nuclear war's neat. Kittens are neat. Rapists are neat. Which, of course, to us is super uncomfortable. But you are not sitting here, like, think about yourself as the God to your own body, right? You got literally, I think, billions of cells. You've got, billions of bacteria in your gut. And you don't like the ones that make you sick, obviously. But you have to know that there are bacteria in your gut battling it out all the time. And who knows, maybe they have some consciousness and are praying to you to figure stuff out. And all you're doing is sitting here choosing whether or not to eat a salad or Taco Bell. And so my point is you're pretty agnostic about which of the bacteria are going to win in your gut, so long as you get to eat your pizza and you have a healthy poop afterwards. And so again, alchemy, as above, so below. If I feel that way about my gut bacteria, I'm pretty sure God, the big God, is pretty agnostic about everything that's happening here. It's all just experience. So we're doing our little work as these little amoebas, little human beings on Earth, and we're trying to get back to that, which is sort of funny because God obviously came down here for a reason. Grass is always greener. So my point is, maybe we don't need to freak out so hard about Satan or whatever it is. Let me put it a different way. If you're freaking out about anything, if there's anything that concerns you, if there's anything that you're labeling negative, that is a very clear sign that is something that you get to transmute and look at and integrate and all that stuff. So I've been talking about demons a lot in my stories, and the reason why is, if we think about it, another way to look at a demon is that it is a very excellent catalyst. So I will take an example. Let's maybe do like a high school clique example, okay? So let's say you have a friend who thinks exactly like you and likes all the same things you like, and make you feel good around them all the time. So you might feel good, but you might not be growing too much. I used to have this friend in high school where we would go shopping, and anything that I wore, she would tell me it looked great. And I hated her for that because I knew it was functionally meaningless. Whereas on the other hand, there would be some bully being like, hey, you got love handles sticking out of the top of your pants, you nerd. And so I, as an unevolved human being, would get triggered and cry about that. But as an evolved human being, I can now clearly see that that person, more so than my friend, is a tremendous instigator and initiator of an opportunity for me to grow. We grow from strife. We grow from combat. We grow from opposition. In that same way, I like to imagine that God and Lucifer are continually helping each other grow and expand. I like to think that the end game in all of this is that we will understand that Satan is us. And we will understand that we do not need to vanquish this thing. We only need to vanquish our fear of this thing. Because the only time the devil's got you, the only time the archons got you on the ropes is when you're freaking stressing out about them. Now, if somebody has literally had the devil show up and walk around and like poke him in the butt with his pitchfork and like no growth came of it, like please share. If you've seen an archon with your real eyes, indisputably, and they've taken their space gun and they've poked you in the butt and you haven't grown from it, let me know about that. Because like I said, I could be wrong, but this is where I am right now. And I do think that I'm on something when it comes to the idea of like, let's not freak the heck out about anything that we consider negative. Let's really take a look at what negative means. And anything that I've been freaked out about in the external world, I've always been able to drill down to it being anchored in some very humble childhood trauma or something like that. I really think that a lot of people in the Ascension community are really just actually super ungrateful for the fact that we have the world's, they're like, and that's the thing, they call it a simulator. Oh my God, we're in a simulator. We're stuck in a loop. Well, maybe we're in a simulator, but the only thing causing the loop is us. What if instead we decided, holy shit, we're in the coolest game of The Sims ever, and we all got enlightened and we all get to play around. And even to the point where maybe we still have wars and we murder each other, but because we know that everything reincarnates and everything goes to God, I mean, who knows what sort of like crazy fun we have with it. I don't think that's something I would want to do personally, but I'm just saying, like, use it as food for thought. Don't just write off what I'm saying. Just sit there and think about it for a while. Imagine if everybody was enlightened. Imagine if everybody had developed their solar consciousness and their unbroken consciousness, so every time we reincarnated, we knew everything that had happened before. We would have so much fun. Everything on this planet would become amazing. If we were truly grateful for our existence now, we would look at everything, even a garbage dump, and we would go, oh my gosh, how amazing is it to see rays of color? And we would be profoundly grateful before we even got to, how amazing is it that I can smell this rotting garbage? The science behind this is incredible. I don't know what went on with the tarot cards because I feel like I'm not going to integrate them anymore, which is fine. It might all come to pass and come to make sense later, and if that's the case, we'll talk about it again. That's usually what happens. Like, I might have like a delay of like later this afternoon or next week or even a month from now where the cards all of a sudden make sense, but we've got the video documentation of it. But I do like the first card, the Hero, and I like the Pillar, and I like the Wildling. In some ways, they're all the same. Your opponent is imagine for a second that your opponent is actually the person who loves you the most, because they are doing everything and absorbing only hatred from you. and giving you the opportunity to grow in exchange for that. How powerful would we become if we thought about things in terms of that? That's what I like to think anyway. And I can tell you for myself that once I shifted into this, my world became a lot brighter. Everything became a lot easier. Coping with everything became a lot easier. I feel more vital. My life has meaning. And I just really want that for you. So think about what you demonize. And think about it as a mirror. And maybe we are meant to look at these black mirrors, these black cubes, which are our phones, and see each other. And see how they're us. Here we go. When I look at this desire card, I just see eyes. Oh, the hero is the 12 of fire. And fire is going to be equivalent to swords? I think swords are fire, wands are air, pentacles are earth, and cups are water. Twelve of fire. Guardian, protector, savior, activist, funny, honorable, integral, selfless, and honest. Key phrases: a person of noble qualities, ordinary people who do extraordinary acts, a person whose lies cannot be trusted, put another's well-being before your own at this time, accord others with respect and dignity. Oh, a person who lies cannot be trusted. Avoid gossip, an opportunity for redemption, give a second chance. Altruism or wounded ego. Meaning, the hero represents someone we all admire for their noble qualities, their courage, and willingness to champion and rescue the weak and vulnerable. In the past, the hero would ride in and save a village from thieves and villains, rescue damsels in distress, and battle against injustice. In the present, they are doctors who work to save lives in lands ravaged by war and disease. They are environmentalists who place themselves in harm's way in order to save the forests, the oceans, and the animals that dwell within. They are the soldiers, the firemen, the paramedics, and police, all of them ordinary people who serve and protect and often put their own lives at risk in order to save the lives of others. This is very long. When the hero appears in your reading, you are being asked to embrace the code, to act selflessly for the greater good. It is time to be the best person you can be, to resist pettiness in behavior that makes you less than you could be. We cannot all perform heroic feats, nor are we all meant to. However, we can choose to hold ourselves to a higher standard and treat all those we meet with dignity, kindness, and compassion. So we have this time where everybody's pointing fingers at each other and making hierarchies and stuff like that, and it just needs to stop. We need to transcend. (20) of the major arcana, desire. Keywords: desires, wants, dreams, ambition, goals, price, gestation, manifestation, consequence, selfishness. Key phrases: what do you desire most? How much do you want it? Desire compels action. People act like desire is a bad thing, and once again, nothing's bad or good. It's just, you can flavor anything. There's righteous anger. There's righteous desire and not righteous desire. Make another attempt. Great expectations, great disappointment. Ground your desires in reality. What you desire will have a price. Wishful thinking. Has your desire waned or changed? Let your conscience be your guide. To desire something at the expense of another. Selfish desires mirror a lack within. Meaning, to desire, to wish or long for something. To lust or crave is to desire. In simple terms, desire means to want something. Desire is the fourth influence on choice. I'm not sure what that means. And when it appears in your reading, it asks that you explore your desires and ask, what is it that you want? And how much do you want it? What are you willing to do in order to achieve your desires? Is desire the root of all suffering? Many religious texts state that desire is something that corrupts humanity and blinds us to our true purpose. However, desire is the state of mind that compels you to act and do whatever you feel is necessary in order to fulfill that desire, because you know that you will feel pleasure or be rewarded for fulfilling that desire. I cannot remember the context of this quote, but I remember hearing something that it was like the first emotion that emerged in the manifested plane was desire, and then it was immediately followed by fear. For example, you desire a glass of water. It is hot. You are thirsty. However, you are in the middle of the garden, covered in mud and sweat, and the floor in the house has just been freshly cleaned. How much do you want that glass of water? What are you willing to do in order to have that glass of water? You can almost feel the coolness as it slides down your throat, washing away the parched dryness of your mouth. You know it is going to be so nice. But having that glass of water involves putting down your tools, halting your progress, cleaning yourself off, taking off those muddy shoes, going inside, getting a glass, filling that glass, drinking the water, and then putting your muddy shoes back on before coming out and getting back to work. So, how much do you want that glass of water? How much do you desire it? Do you want it enough to stop and do what needs to be done in order to have it now? Or are you more inclined to wait until the task in front of you is completed? Could waiting also have consequences? This is desire in action. Desire in action means believing that a particular outcome is good. It is worthy of our desire. It means valuing something as important and therefore worthy of our time and effort. It is desire that drives us to set goals and then act on them. It is desire that inspires us to keep going long after somebody else would have given up. Desire is what motivates you, drives you, compels you to act, to take risks, and to make sacrifices with a smile. One of fire. New beginnings, initiate action, conception, invention, creation, creativity, procrastination. Key phrases: new beginnings and opportunities, actively pursue your goals, take advantage of what's being offered, move beyond research and planning, weave your future into being, take something old and make it better, break with tradition and offer something new. Uncertainty inspires procrastination. Meaning, like all of Ace cards, the Ace of Fire represents the promise of new beginnings and opportunities, but unlike the other aces, this card also represents action. I was just watching the episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender where he first sought a firebender. It's kind of funny. Fire has its own mind. It represents the power for and the necessity of taking the initiative and actively pursuing our goals. It is about taking advantage of the opportunities we are presented with, as opposed to thinking about it. It is good to have a goal, to dream and to make plans, but the Ace of Fire lets us know that now is the time to move beyond research and planning. It is time to take the first real steps towards getting things underway. It is time to follow through on inspiration and create. It is time to weave your future into being, time for you to begin your active participation. The Ace of Fire also symbolizes inventiveness. Take an old idea and make it better, or create something new and unique. Whatever you seek to do, you can now make it your own and imbue it with your unique perspective and imagination. Now, rather than following tradition, do something in a way that offers a new approach. You are surrounded by so much potential at this moment. The Ace of Fire represents passion and excitement. It is a time full of energy and life. Take advantage of this moment and the power it brings. I feel like we are at this whole new precipice in reality that just has never been presented before. And I held my tongue for a very long time because it felt like anything that I was saying was going to be basically megalomaniacal. Because I look around and I don't see very many people saying a lot of the things that I'm saying and thinking, and I don't think have met anybody that encompasses it all. And maybe I never will. That's what makes this all unique, right? But I feel like we're at this time where we get to turn back around on God and Lucifer and be like, no. We have things we have to teach you. Just as the way a child reaches a certain age and understands that while the parent created them, they are still agents of expansion for that parent. The parent ceases to be the all-knowing, all-seeing. And we may be doing that with our own gods right now. And that is an audacious thing to say, and that gets people killed. Thank God I live in the United States of America. Even though it is on fire, I can still say this stuff. Thank you. Next. We are gelling together in a quickening, all of us coming together to become a new egg and crack and become something new. So far, everything in our current paradigm has just been the egg growing. And we actually get to crack it open and see what the heck is about to come out of it. Everything has the potential to completely change. We don't have to hold on to anything from the past. We don't have to think anything about anything in particular just because we read about it or heard about it. Fate. Fate. Fate, fate, fate. Ether. 96. Page 96. Tesla says something like, if we understand the power of 3, 6, and 9, we'll, like, understand everything. This card is a reminder that you create your fate. While some lessons and experiences are inescapable, we have free will and choice within the life we are given. This does not always equal fairness, as we do not all start life from the same footing. Nonetheless, each choice we make matters. From this place, we can approach the creation of our life in an empowered way. This deck was inspired by the Norns, 3 mythical figures that rule the destiny of humans within Norse mythology. The name Norn derives from a word meaning to twine, referring to how they weave the threads of fate. Fate is seen as a malleable thing with some fixed aspects. Card's partner is the weaver. The weaver asks that you tend to the threads. This card asks you to get clear on the fate you are weaving. This card is big picture and all about vision. What are you working toward? What are you saying no to? When we say no, we are saying no to all the experiences that would unfold in the aftermath. Both the yes and no is powerful when we are creating our reality. Two polaric sides coming together to create something bigger, to support each other and support something above it. I would think the pillar would be Earth, but we'll see. Ether, interesting. 104. The pillar signifies a need to rise to the occasion. It indicates a time where we may need to be all things: the backbone, the nurturer, the provider, the lover. The pillar asks you to step into these roles as best as you can, knowing that you are being pushed outside of your comfort zone. You will learn just how capable you are. It is a time where we take our gifts to new heights and learn that our perceived flaws are just that, perceived. If you have been resisting a new opportunity or a role that has presented itself, it is time to step into it and trust that you will learn as you go. I am proof of that these days. Everything started happening when I started rejecting people saying, "What's your plan? What's happening next?" And I say, I'm understanding it. It's a surprise to me as I go, same as you. This is also a time where our container grows. We learn just how much space we can hold for others and ourselves. Continue to listen to yourself. Fill your own cup so that you can be there for others. But do not forget to push yourself. Balanced pillar energy is being able to wear many hats to hold space for family and community, but doing these things with empowered boundaries. It is placing your personal well-being and needs first, knowing that your service will be better because of it. Unbalanced pillar can go a couple of ways. In an attempt to maintain all control, one can get domineering and manipulative. On the other hand, they may find themselves becoming codependent, where their identity gets wrapped up in the need to caretake others while forgetting about themselves. The Wildling, 118, also ether. That's kind of funny. We're going to the next level, folks. Pulling the Wildling card indicates a time to connect to the most primal parts of yourself, something that I can speak very personally about currently. This may mean you need to detach a bit from people around you so you can hear the whispers of your deepest knowing without the influence of others. Paradoxically, I'm reading a book to say back away from books, back away from the internet. Or, indulge all you want, but when it's time to listen, disconnect from all that stuff and go within. The wildling is raw, empowered, and independent. Many people are intimidated by them because they need little from others and prioritize radical freedom, which can be unsettling as most of society operates within unspoken expectations and contracts. The wildling burns the contract and heads into the woods. Wildling comes to us as an ally when we need to break free of the systems that limit us. The wildling within us remembers a time when we lived with the land, when we walked barefoot, when our lives were in alignment with the natural world. Wildling is a call for remembrance. A good way to invoke wildling is to dive deeper into our body and hear what it needs from us on our most primal level. A balanced wildling prioritizes freedom but remains grounded. They possess an instinct that may not make sense to others, but never leads them astray. They are present to their own emotions and needs and will spend time on their personal development. An unbalanced wildling is in a state of perpetual chaos. And that is, my friend, why people are afraid of the void. They're afraid of the void because they're afraid of going into the void unbalanced. As long as we are integrated, we can go anywhere. Integrate your demons. Forgive your demons. Love your demons. They're probably just the primal part of us. An unbalanced wildling is avoidant and often uses the external for a band-aid of their internal dis-ease, which often means they are constantly moving on to the next thing. What they move on to never ends up being what they hoped for. I never know what my videos are going to be about when I start. And I still think I kind of come off as a jabbering idiot sometimes, but the way that I reach divinity and the unknown and the etheric and the cool out there stuff with aliens and astral projection and synergies and magic is by appreciating that this right here, 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 this right here is magic. I appreciate and respect the fact that magic looks like just working on myself a little bit every single day, failing, adjusting the next day, and going again. You've got it, kid. We've got it. I cannot wait to play with you. I cannot wait for you to wake up from your nap and come play with me. I'm very excited for the future. We are powerful. We are infinite. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.